This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland went to the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Roan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Well, when a regular season is this fun, you just do not want it to end. And apparently that was a sentiment that was shared by the members of the Cleveland Cavaliers this afternoon, I should say, going to double overtime against the Indiana Pacers. It was a close one. Ultimately, I think they got a little tired and weren't able to pull it out. But joining me today to discuss that, the win at Madison Square Garden, and look ahead to the playoffs is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. I spent the last couple days in Athens, Ohio, singing my little heart out with the Singing Men of Ohio. So shout out for a little alumni trip with some of my dear friends. I am not in game shape for Athens, Ohio, so you might need to carry the the energy a little bit on this one.
You're still, the vocal cords are still sounding all right, buddy.
Brother,
I'm not concerned.
It was I can go an octave deeper than normal after a weekend of debauchery. But had a great time. Saw a bunch of good friends, and the Cavs took home one really fun win. And then they closed the year on a loss, but it was kind of a fun loss, and it's in its own way. There was plenty of fun stuff to happen. So no complaints here, and really excited for the playoffs.
Yeah, it's something that I'm grateful for, looking back at 82 games now in the books. I don't think there were a lot of times that we've come here on this podcast and there just wasn't anything to talk about, that it wasn't fun, it wasn't entertaining in any way, shape, or form. We talked after that last Indiana game where they were resting a bunch of guys and they had a chance to win that one. This one, they were up against the Indiana, I don't want to say starters, because Siakam and Halliburton were out, but they were competitive throughout the night. They had a big lead that they ultimately weren't able to hang on to, but they were competitive and entertaining throughout this entire season. And that's something that I really do appreciate. And these game 82s are always kind of fun. The Cavs historically have handled this game by, resting their starters. How we got the Jordan McRae game back in the day. We've had a lot of kind of fun performances on game 82. But, to see Jalen Tyson go for a career high in points, to see Naquan Tomlin go for a career high in points, Amani Bates having a really fun game.
That had to be his career high. There's no way he scored 25 before.
Yeah, I'm just going to assume that that's a career high for him as well. And, Craig Porter Jr. having a great night. Like, that to me is entertaining. That I thought that they played competitive basketball. I thought it was a lot of fun. And, the fans that were in attendance got more than they bargained for with double OT.
Yeah, it was hilarious. It's just like, you could really, there was this moment in the game where there were like 2 minutes left and Rick Carlisle took a timeout up 4, and I heard John Michael's soul leave his body. What are you doing, Rick? But it was a fun game. And yeah, it was really nice to see like how much depth these guys have, we've said it a lot. We said it last year with Amani's rookie year that if this were 6 years ago, he's probably playing 28 minutes a night, just figuring out in real time. But a lot of this stuff just happens out of most fans' sightlines right now with a team that good. That you just don't get to see Jalen Tyson play that much. You don't get to see Naquan Tomlin play. Armani, even a guy like Craig, really, 43 minutes is hilarious. Naquan played 47 minutes. He probably quadrupled his NBA experience to that point with that. So,
and 46 for Tyson. It's so funny in a season where Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley all play career lows in minutes per game. And I don't think we had any that they crossed the 40-minute threshold. But for a bunch of guys that don't typically play and that don't have a lot of game experience, at least at the NBA level this season, for them to all basically go up to nearly 48 minutes. Yeah, you're going to be a little bit tired, and you're probably going to, blow a lead. I think some of the
I'll tell
fatigue
you
was
what,
showing up in the overtimes in fourth quarter.
I think most members of the Cavs organization probably got to kick their feet up, got to enjoy the satisfaction of a season well played. You didn't get to relax, probably the training and massage staff. The walking wounded came in.
Oh yeah, there were some sore individuals there, but hey, Jalen Tyson and Craig Porter Jr. They had that game earlier this season where they played a game for the Charge and then played real minutes for the Cavs on the same day. We talk about back-to-backs. These guys are hoopers, and I want to get into the young guys a little more in depth. But before we fully dive into that, I do want to point out there's probably a decent chance that this is Tristan Thompson's last regular season game.
Oh, wow. I hadn't considered.
It dawned on me after the game. It wasn't really something that I thought about. And for him to, if it is in fact his last game, either in the NBA or as a member of the Cavs, because he's not under contract next season, it's kind of fun that he went out with 20 rebounds. You want to talk about someone that's sore? He played 42 minutes. But, just padding those stats, moving up a little further in the Cavs record books in the total rebounds column. It was fun to see Tristan out there.
Yeah.
Wish he would have knocked down a couple more of those free throws, particularly that one in the fourth quarter was why they went to overtime. As he was at the line, I was already just looking at my phone, not really, kind of checking out of that end of game scenario. And then ultimately Indiana forced overtime. But it was nice to see Tristan out there. He had the goaltend that was called a block. That was a little bit fortunate, but he had some moments, and I'm always going to have a soft spot for Tristan.
As you should, buddy. Do you want to talk about that the young guys, or do we want to talk DG against the Knicks first?
Let's go young guys first. Let's talk about the game that just occurred, because I was really, really encouraged by this. One of the things that we talked about when we were evaluating the two-way spots at the start of the year was this seems like the type of guys you want to take a swing on. These are, in the archetype that would be of interest to the Cavs, right? They have a lot of depth at the guard positions. I would say more than we even thought coming into the year, given how well Ty Jerome played and, the progression that we've seen Craig Porter Jr. make. Obviously, you have a major investment in Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. DeAndre Hunter is playing minutes at the 4. Dean Wade has had a very successful season. So getting athletic wings, I think, has been what's been on the forefront of our mind. And, looking at Jalen Tyson, Naquan Tomlin, Amani Bates, not that what they did tonight is what you'd expect from them on a nightly basis. We understand that Game 82 is weird. But to me, it was almost just a little bit of a confirmation that, yeah, these are guys worth taking a swing on. I understand what the Cavs were doing with this. And I think in each instance of these guys, I feel like they have made progress from when I first saw them to start this year.
Yeah, I think, most certainly. We did see the kids show up. We said at the beginning of the year when they were kind of filling the two-way is if you feel like the three of them have a combined chance of one of them making it to be a rosterable player. If you were to say that combined percentage is 40%, you're making good use of your two ways. Yeah. And, I still feel that way, even after. And that was when they had JT Thor, who obviously they moved on from in order to give Tomlin this opportunity. And Tomlin really showed out. He was... he is a really interesting player. I won't lie. There aren't a lot of two-way 6'10", pretty big man sized big men that you're running pick and rolls, inverted pick and rolls for that are on two-way deals. The ball skills are pretty impressive, honestly, for a guy of that size. The jumper obviously wasn't hitting super well today. But overall, I just thought there was clearly a fluidity advantage for him against the guys he was playing against. And a lot of the stuff that you saw that like maybe wasn't so great, a lot of the time was the what were the moments where, you know, the game got a little fast for him. But that's kind of great news, you know, of any player around Tomlin's age that has an excuse to like be a little behind on that part of the game. It's a guy who didn't play high school basketball. I mean, what a miracle it is. A guy who didn't play high school basketball just played 47 minutes in an NBA game. So
Yeah.
super cool for him. I do like, you know, I think if you were to ask me going into, this last third of the season, who I thought the two-way with the best chance of landing on the main roster was, I probably would have said Travers, then Tomlin and Bates, and kind of a morass from there. And
Yeah.
I gotta say, I think Tomlin might be the best candidate we have, because we are so now well stocked on the wings after the DeAndre Hunter trade. We're very well stocked at guard, and like if you're looking up and down the roster, like backup five,
Yeah. 4 or 5, right? Like
yeah, there's just a little more room. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit on that, but that's kind of where my brain went to.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely don't want to get ahead over your skis with this, right? Like he's played 5 games now in the NBA. If you look at the per 36 numbers, he's averaging 20 points and 12 rebounds. So like the activity's really there. But he is shooting 40% from the field and 20% from 3 in those games, right? So like he's raw. He needs some time. I think, you know, the athleticism jumps off the screen. Blocking that jump shot was phenomenal. Honestly, there was a lot of great blocks in this game. Craig Porter Jr. had that one on the breakaway. Jalen Tyson had an amazing one. Jalen Tyson turning the corner on Neesmith and then dunking on Jarris Walker was... I'm sorry. I was not familiar with your game. I did not know that you could do that. But he really showed a lot of craft, and it was encouraging for me to see him, you know, show that craft early in the game and continue it, right? Like it wasn't just when some of the end of bench guys were in there. He was good throughout the night. But I agree with you. I think Tomlin has a real chance anytime you have someone with that kind of physical tools and that kind of length. It's really interesting. And he was of the group, he was the most productive for the Charge this season. He led them in scoring. He had a really, really dominant season. And, you know, looking forward to next year, would it be that outrageous to say, hey, this guy could maybe fill that Javonte Green role? Like as a bigger activity guy that's a little raw offensively, but we like what he can bring. If you're signing him to, you know, that kind of original Dean Wade, Sam Merrill contract where it's a 3-4 year deal with all team options, and, you know, it's for basically the minimum, or I should say the Craig Porter Jr. deal, because he's on one of those as well. Like, I would not be opposed to that, particularly when you're talking about a team that already has its top 8 pretty much locked up for next season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I would actually go to Javonte Green. I think I would go to Chuma Okeke, who, you know, is another rung lower on the priority list for the team, you know? Like, the team, I think there's, like, if you were to say, what % chance do you think it is that Kenny turns to Javonte in a playoff series? I would say, like, 15, 20. Yeah. Like, for a moment, you know, for a 5-minute stretch or whatever it may be. I don't think he's turning to Okeke unless the team's in real foul trouble, you know, injury, whatever. And I think that's that's why I wouldn't classify Tomlin in the same way that you classify Javonte, because I think Javonte can come into a playoff series and I'd be like, all right, let's see what happens. Let's see what he can do. Whereas Tomlin, I'd be like, not ready yet, brother. Don't do that. And there is a meaningful difference there.
I think that's a fair point. The one thing I'll bring up, one, we were negligent because I don't think we mentioned the Okeke signing.
No, we didn't. It just kind of slid under. Bad timing.
Just had too much to discuss. So I like the signing. I think that he is someone that is a polished defender. I like what he can do on that end. He's shown a little bit of range. To me, I'd be interested in bringing him into camp next year.
Sure.
I'd rather take the Flyers. Like, honestly, you have so much proven talent. I understand what you're saying with Javonte Green, but I'd rather take the Flyers when on the perimeter you do have Max Strus, you do have DeAndre Hunter, you do have Isaac Okoro, you do have Dean Wade. Like, I get what Javonte Green can bring, and I think for this season, you're absolutely right. But I think going into next year, understanding that in all likelihood this is going to be a second apron team, get those young guys under contract, like get those Flyers in place, because if if you're hitting on these guys on the margin, which I think is the most important thing when you talk about the play of Tyson, Tomlin, Bates, and Travers, and even Craig Porter Jr., if you're hitting on those guys and you already have your top 8 locked up, you're able to basically keep the team together as long as you are able to financially stomach. You're not in a position where, the necessity to make roster changes is putting you in a tough position more so than, we're just okay with paying this luxury bill. So I'd rather go a little bit younger, but I completely understand what you're saying, and you're certainly correct when it comes to this year.
Yeah, so it's just going to be an interesting balance to strike up and down the roster, and we should talk about Jalen Tyson, who had a very, very good game. And I thought, even though his minutes were a little more up and down against the Knicks, he had a brain fart pick six he gave up on a pass. The field goal percentage wasn't where you'd want it to be, but overall was positive in those minutes in a very pure role player capacity. Then obviously has to carry a huge load in this game. Takes 25 shots, scores 31 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 5 turnovers. But I was thinking about him a little bit, about how, in some ways, like, you do feel a little bit better if you need to count on Jalen Tyson at any point next season than maybe you did at the beginning of this year. But there is occupational hazard in making that like plan A, or even plan 1A. Think about how many of the Denver guys, they look ready. Those guys are good. And then it's the job got a little. Hold on. Yeah. Let me get through the point, which is to say that it was nice when Julian Strother or Peyton Watson was a luxury. It got a lot harder when they were a necessity. So I would say that's something they need to think about as they're going through. Not that they should not plan on developing Tyson, giving him more responsibility, but it's not always linear. It's not always he showed this, so when we give him more, he'll be ready. When you're a top end contending team, it gets really messy to balance all these different priorities. That's all I was trying to say. Not that would happen, or that it's a 1-to-1 situation, but figuring out how to plot the long-term course of the development of these young guys is hard.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, even if his growth continues and it is incredibly linear, they're going to be in a bit of a bind. The reason why I was jumping on the Denver point is, if we retain Ty Jerome and Sam Merrill, you're going into next year with the core 4, DeAndre Hunter, Max Strus, Isaac Okoro, Ty Jerome, Dean Wade, Sam Merrill. Jalen Tyson's your 11th.
Yeah. Which he kind of is right now. Maybe, I guess Javonte is.
Yeah, I'd say Javonte is right now. So Jalen Tyson, he's 12th right now, and would maybe move up one spot in terms of how you would enter next season. So I don't think, that's not something that you're relying on. And if you have a top 10 that's spoken for, 11 through 15, let's take some flyers. Bring in, if you want to sign a veteran big man for the minimum, just so that you have a little bit of depth there. If you want to sign Naquan Tomlin to kind of a speculative deal, I'm all for that, because that's, you're giving yourself a bit of a floor with signing a big man, and then you're giving yourself some upside by signing a Tomlin. But none of those guys are really going to be counted on. But, Jalen Tyson, you talk about guys that would be playing if this was a couple years ago. Jalen Tyson would have been playing a lot of minutes for this Cavs team. There's no doubt in my mind. He's a better player than Lamar Stevens ever was for us. I'm just as encouraged by what he did against the Knicks and giving them 22 solid minutes on a night that they needed them, even though it was up and down.
It's almost better.
Right, like guy coming in off an injury, you expect some rust there. The turnovers, he only had one in that game, so took better care of the ball. Got some offensive rebounds, got the hustle plays, got a steal. Like that to me was really, really encouraging. And having guys like him, like when we talk about this young group, the two guys that actually have NBA contracts right now, they look like they are NBA players. And that's Craig Porter Jr. and that's Jalen Tyson. That's super encouraging. And in the instance of Craig Porter Jr., you can just tell how much better he's gone since the last season. Like the shot, how quickly he gets into it has sped up. I still think he needs to kind of ramp that up a little bit. But, you know, he looks like a much, much more confident shooter. And I think it's really helped open up the feel for his game because he is someone that can contribute on the glass with his passing. Not a lead guard, but a really helpful combo guard to have.
Yeah, Craig is, talk about the ultimate luxury for the team. I think there is a pretty clear, delineation between him. I don't see a world in which like we're getting into camp and being like, can Craig compete for backup minutes? Like, no, yeah. I don't think so. And some of that is, I think, one, Ty just being a bananas player all of a sudden, and kind of shutting that door. But like there is also like some of the fit stuff, it's hard to play him and Darius together against really good teams. He and Donovan are kind of an imperfect fit because of the jump shooting.
Yep.
So like I do think there's some fit limitations for him. I do like strongly think like there's a lot of teams in the league I think Craig would be their backup point guard.
Yeah.
Like and maybe there's a ceiling on that, but like just from a luxury standpoint, like if we have, I'm going to be like really reductionist. If the top 30 point guards are all starters, which they're not, but like if the top 30 point guards are all starters, 31 through 60 are all your backup point guards, and 61 through 90 are all your third string point guards. Like I would put someone like Craig in that middle tier.
He's in the 30 to 60.
Yeah, he's in that 30 to 60 range, which I think is a really great outcome,
Mm-hmm.
And like if you're Kobe Altman, when I talk about like how you have to hit singles, you have to hit doubles in addition to the home runs, you got to keep getting the bat on the ball. And like I think those kind of hits are almost not as important, obviously, but they are important to the underlying integrity of your roster, is that you always have slightly overqualified dudes in spots where they are ready to step up and fill a gulf that otherwise would be challenging to fill.
Yeah, those singles and doubles are incredibly important, right? Like even if it's one, we have injury depth. Two, we have some leverage when we go into contract negotiations of, hey, like we do have depth here, right? Like we saw, in that second LeBron run, Tristan Thompson and J.R. Smith were like, hey, we're bringing something that nobody else is bringing to the table. When you have a bunch of guys that are bringing something to the table, the conversation becomes, yeah, we're going to respect you here, but everyone's going to have to sacrifice a little bit. Just like, guys are sacrificing for the numbers. Do you want to be a part of this, right? So it gives you some leverage to that extent. But while singles and doubles are important, it's also important to hit some home runs. And right now, Carter, I got to tell you, the support from Zoom AI Companion is absolutely a home run, because only you can do your best work. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion. Moving on from the 31 to 60 range for point guards, let's talk about a top 5 point guard right now. Darius Garland was dominant at Madison Square Garden. He was so much fun. And
I
honestly,
love Madison Square Garland as a nickname, by the way.
Hell of a pun. I really enjoy it, and I really enjoy what he did in that arena. Just thinking back to a couple years ago in the playoffs, he had one horrific game at MSG and one good game at MSG. I think his overall series against the Knicks gets talked about as worse than it actually was. I think he had a solid series. We just didn't have anyone that had a great series. But particularly when Garland has been in a bit of a funk, he's coming off the game against Chicago where he was great. But that was kind of a one game sample. For him to take over the way that he did against New York, shorthanded, and all the defense is focused on him. He's splitting doubles with Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. He's finishing in traffic. The playmaking was phenomenal. It was just the perfect way to cap off his regular season.
Yeah, I think the stat was that he contributed 8 of the Cavs' 9 field goals in the final eight minutes of the game that he played. Between his own buckets, where he goes 6 of 6, and a couple dimes as well. Just a complete takeover, and a complete control of the game. And those games just feel so special when they're like, we go as Darius goes, and we're gonna get a good look every single time.
Yep.
Like, he was really, really beating up the drop coverage, just freezing Mitchell Robinson or OG or whoever happened to be in drop, and either getting the floater or making the perfect pass. Just an absolute dominant way to close out the game and send Knicks fans into their 37th crisis of the season.
Yep.
I realized, by the way, because now the Knicks are 0-10 against the Celtics, Cavs, and Thunder. Yeah. And I realized they've only lost 31 games. So they're 51-21 against the rest of the league.
Yeah.
And they just can't hang against these Cavs teams. But the fact that Darius at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year shuts the door in MSG in the fourth quarter and just completely takes over and makes sure that the game, he is putting his imprint on the game. So cool. I went ahead and pulled this up because I was like, what was just Darius's fourth quarters at MSG this year? 28 points, 11 of 13 from the field, 4 of 5 from 3, and plus 17 in 17.2 total minutes.
My God.
My
pretty good.
Goodness. In both instances, playoff type crowds. That Knicks crowd was rumbling at MSG.
Yeah.
And they were in that beginning of the year, same thing. It was a big moment, a big spotlight, a big kind of opportunity. And the fact that he passed with such flying colors, it's hard to even call it an A+.
Yep.
It's off the grading scale, how good he has been against the Knicks. And man, I'm sad they didn't land on our side of the bracket, let me tell you.
Yeah, that is a little unfortunate, but it's, you play who you have to play. I would love to beat them, but honestly, I think even if they did land on our side of the bracket, I don't know if they're getting out of the first round, particularly this matchup against Detroit. You said that they're 0-10 against the top teams. They're 1-3 against Detroit, and that one win came on November 1st when Detroit was still finding their footings. But Garland, he was dominant all season long in the fourth quarter and in the clutch. 69 true shooting percentage in the clutch this season, which is very nice. They had the best offense in the clutch all in the entire NBA. They had the best defense, at least if you look at the top 10 scores in the clutch this season. Garland was part of the best clutch defense. Assist to turnover ratio of 5 in the clutch. He's not turning the ball over. He's scoring efficiently from 3. He's scoring efficiently from the floor, and he's scoring efficiently from the free throw line. He was dominating those spots all year. And, I think now that we're past game 82 here, should also reflect on the work that he put in to bounce back from last season. Because last season was incredibly difficult for him from a physical standpoint. And you look at this year, the 2 games he missed after that fall versus the Knicks, I think those are the only ones that were kind of true injury missed games. The rest were all kind of rest games. And hey, he's got a little something nagging, but we're playing it back-to-back here in Sacramento, so we're going to rest you. It's game 82, so we're going to rest you. He played 75 games this year, and that's a really, really encouraging sign when, we've had conversations about durability in the past.
Yeah, an encouraging sign. And as I kind of not mentioned going into our last pod, and knocked on wood, and I'll continue to knock on wood, I mean, we're healthy right now. That is so exciting to kind of have in your back pocket. Is the closest thing we have is Donovan's ankle turn, and Kenny was pretty clear he would be playing if the game still mattered. And
reporting on him going through, aggressive workouts, and he'll be part of the intra-squad scrimmages this week. So that's really nice to see.
And everyone on the roster that is expected to be in the playoff rotation, with the exception of Jared Allen, who frankly barely played. And big shouts to him for getting all 82. We should definitely give him his flowers as well. But everyone else is going to have at least 8 days off between their last game, that Friday game, and then the first game of round 1. So it feels like if you wanted to control for outside elements, you are as controlled as you can possibly be.
Yep. And
there's some peace that comes with that,
Absolutely. And, I think credit has to go to the players. It has to go to the coaching staff. It has to go to Kobe Altman in the front office for putting together the depth that they were able to take this kind of long-term approach all season. It's really, really encouraging. They've put themselves and they've earned the position that they're in. We're in a better position from a health standpoint heading into the, after game 82 than Boston is. Jaylen Brown's getting knee injections to try to manage the pain there, right? That's something that's going to be worth keeping an eye on. It's a better position that they've been in, since we've been covering this run. You didn't know if Jared Allen was going to play in the play-in. He missed the first game, and then the second one he was playing through a hell of a lot of pain, basically only using his left hand. Going into the Knicks series, Isaac Okoro had missed, the last few weeks of the season, and it was a question of, can he manage the pain and play through the pain in that series? Last year, obviously, Donovan's knee, Darius was a shell of himself. Like, this is just a much, much better situation to be in, and I'm curious. I'm really, really curious to see how this is all going to translate. I'm feeling incredibly optimistic. It's not even optimistic. I'm feeling incredibly confident. I think that this team absolutely has what it takes to win a championship this year. And what we're going to see is, have they learned enough from the past? And are they able to be quick learners and learn the lessons that they haven't yet learned in the playoffs, or at least they haven't demonstrated yet? Because there is going to still be a learning curve. Like, they've learned a lot, I would assume, from the past couple of years, but Kenny Atkinson hasn't coached outside the first round. A lot of these guys, Max Strus and Tristan Thompson, are the only guys that have been beyond the second round. There's going to be some learning to do. And thinking back to that second LeBron run, I remember how Kyrie and Tristan learned along the way. Even though Kyrie was playing through some injuries, I thought that there were strides that he made in that postseason. And I think we're going to need to see the same thing from Darius, from Evan, from basically everyone on this team that hasn't been there before.
Yeah, they're gonna have to perform. They're going to have to show their quality, and I do want to ask that because you mentioned your level of confidence. And I feel really good about the health of the team. I feel really good about the talent level of the team. They did finish their last 16 games 8-8.
Okay.
Now, context abounds. Two of those losses were ones you could probably categorize as they didn't work that hard to win them, in terms of the rotational and roster choices they made, getting guys rest, etc. But does that in any way affect your confidence that they went 8-8 down the stretch run?
Not even slightly, because Donovan looked really good in his last couple games, and Darius looked really good in his last couple games, and that was pretty much the only question that I had. And I think that the time off is going to do them a lot of good, but this is a team that I think showed throughout this season, when they had their little ruts, they bounced back. They bounced back strong. And, even in that 8-8 stretch, there were some really good performances there. When they turned it on, even with the guards not shooting particularly well. It doesn't factor in even 1% into my mental calculations here. My confidence is sky high, and I feel really good about any of the prospective 4 matchups in the first round.
Well, yeah, I'm not really talking about first round. Nothing they could have done to close the season would have me really wondering if they could win the first round. series.
I'm
against
just
an
saying that from
seed.
taking a step at a time here.
Like,
But
how, like what about for like, you know, like to take it a step further, like against a team like Indiana who's playing unbelievably good basketball, like, and they're in great form, you know, does the end of the season affect how you feel about that, or even going up to the next series against Boston, like where you go, all right, I still intellectually know we could win that series, but they haven't shown 48 minutes of elite basketball in a minute for me to know that they're going to be able to call on it or whatever. And I'm just asking. I don't know where I stand on all of it.
What's changed for me with Indiana is the level of respect that I have for them. The level that I think the Cavs need to play up to win that series, you know, in 5-6 games. I think is higher than I would have thought it was a month ago. My level of confidence is still very high. And what I would say is I do not think a team in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs can beat the Cavs.
You don't think they can?
I don't think they can. I think the Cavs, if they were to lose in the first rounds, I think they would beat themselves. And I don't think any of the matchups that they would have in these first 2 rounds are good enough to put them in a position where they would beat themselves. So it would be, in my opinion, it would be, you know, individual collapses or, you know, something catastrophic that you can't control. But I don't think any of these teams are at the tier that they can straight up beat the Cavs in the series. I think it would be the Cavs not executing and them falling apart in ways that would force, you know, real conversations about where this team is going.
I feel like that's a little bit of a tomato, you know, like if the Cavs fall apart, isn't it a little bit because someone helped them do so, you know? Like
no, I'm not giving Indy any credit there. I'm purely self-reflecting there.
I think, I don't know. I think that there is a I need the Cavs to earn that level of like FU confidence in a postseason. You know, again, it all is going to ride back on. I think I've kind of peppered you with these questions. I haven't really answered myself, which isn't very fair. What I'll say is the slump, the extended, you know, month-long slump from 3 did show me like how the ceiling can drop for this team a little bit, and how some of their, you know, and just like everyone, right? When your ceiling drops, like where are the spots where your floor is going to stay high enough to survive, you know? Yeah. And like there were some times where I felt like, well, it's just like they're just so dependent on that 3-point volume to get them back into a rhythm that if they go into a playoff series and they're getting scouted like crazy and the threes are all 20% harder, you know, are they going to be a little more vulnerable than we want them to be? Right. So like so I will say, like, writ large, the 8-8 stretch to end the year, maybe it affected my opinion like 5 to 10%, you know? Okay. Maybe I'm a little 5 to 10% more anxious than I would be otherwise. But like they can absolutely change that with a dominant first round playoff series. Like I really do think that is going to tell me a lot. Like if they are playing, I don't know, let's say they play the Hawks or the Magic or the Bulls or, you know, or the Heat, any of them really. And
I think safe money says
yeah,
they will.
It probably will be one of those 4. All the betting experts say. But if they do play one of them and they win in 4 or 5, and it's like 3 of them are ass kickings, it's like, all right, nope, that was just their board. But if it's a hard series, I do think.
Oh yeah, then you know my confidence is going to be very shaken if that happens in the first round. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah, that's fair.
I'm almost just taking it from like an inverse position where I'm assuming because everything that they went through was logical, right? Like that was a month and a bit from hell where they were just consistently on the road. They were dealing with some nagging stuff. The slumps that we saw from all of the guards. Then, you know, you see Ty Jerome come back from some time off and he looks fantastic. You see them have an extended stretch where they're at home or not traveling a whole bunch. And Darius looks really good. Donovan looks really good. Like that correlation is just at the forefront of my mind here. So I'm like, Well, this is confirming my priors, so I'm not going to move off of my priors, and
Yeah.
I'm right back to that level of confidence. And the literally the only thing that I'm sitting here disappointed about on Sunday, April 13th, is I think 65 would have looked better. I would have liked to have seen them get that win. But I'm not sitting here with a lot of concerns going into the playoffs. I feel really, really good about their ability to make it out of the Eastern Conference right now.
Well, I think it's also reflective of like what we think of the East right now.
Yep.
Dame out for the foreseeable future in Milwaukee. Indiana with really solid team, but not a team that's like screams high end ceiling to you. Boston going through their ups and downs of still a great year for them. No shade in their direction, but they don't look as devastating as they were last year at times. And then the Cavs have a higher seed, they just straight up they're a 1 seed. And I think it's probably fair to say that we don't respect any of the 7 through 10 prospective opponents the way we respected last year's Magic team. Especially me. I love that Magic team last year. I knew they were going to be hard to beat. And
they were near the top of the conference and dropped down because of injuries. It was very similar to us, right?
So for me, I was like, with them last year, I was like, I expect a hard series. So when a hard series comes, I'm not going to be shook. Everyone else can be shook, but I'm not, because I thought this was going 7 in the first place. And
then we felt really confident after the game 1 and 2 blowouts where the Cavs just handled them.
Yeah, for sure. But I did think they were going to counterpunch, and they did. Yeah. But whereas this, I'm expecting a 4 or a 5 game series. So if it extends longer, I'm going to be a little shook.
Yep, I would be too. 100% could not agree more. Man, what a fun season though. I'm really, really confident. Can I pop quiz you for a second here?
Sure.
What do you think the Celtics starting lineup with Porzingis, what their net rating is versus the Cavs this season?
Minus 5.5.
Minus 42.
How many minutes?
What do you think?
How many minutes?
I think I can't recall. I don't have that available. It's not a ton. I think it might be like 30 or something like that. Last year's I think got up over 100. Do you want to guess where it was last year with Porzingis?
I'm gonna go the opposite way. I'm gonna say it was plus 9.
Minus 10.
Oh wow. So we're just not worried about their starters, I guess.
I'm once again, this goes to show you how many minutes you need for things to normalize. But even with all the struggles that the Cavs have had against Porzingis, I think he does give them fits on the interior. It's not a lineup that has had success against the Cavs, and it's not a lineup that has had success this season, period. So I really think it's a fair fight. Like I said last podcast, if both teams are fully healthy, I think you play that series over 10 times, the Cavs win 4 of them. Cavs have the ability to, just like at the start of the season, where I said, I feel like there's at least a 5% chance we can win a championship. What the Cavs do over the first 2 rounds is going to either increase or decrease my confidence there, where I can say, hey, 50-50, even if both teams are fully healthy. And if both teams aren't fully healthy and, the Jaylen Brown knee injury starts lingering, then you got a real opportunity here. But the Cavs need to show that they could get this offense to translate to the playoffs, and they need to show that they have matured enough to execute at a high enough level to beat a team as good as Boston in a series. You can't have those first quarters that you had before. Those 16-0 runs that you gave up in the regular season, they're going to have to find a way to mitigate that and get it down to an 8-0 run, because Boston's going to have those runs. Boston's going to, win a game by 20 in that series. You're going to need to come out and not look shook the next game and execute at a high level. That's the things that I have not yet seen from this team in the playoffs, but they've shown me a lot this season, and they've shown me that their composure is at a much, much higher level against the best teams in the league, and particularly in the clutch.
Yeah. The clutch stuff does feel the best, feels maybe the most important piece of data available to us. that's like shows that there's going to be something a little different for them in the playoffs, and we're not going to have this Mondo drop off. I also think just the straight up baseline is higher, which helps.
There is one other factor that gives me a lot of confidence, and that's Evan Mobley.
Sure.
He's so much better. He's so much better this year.
What do you think the Cavs' highest offensive rating was last year in the playoffs? Playoffs. Individual game.
122?
It was 128 against Boston in that uber fun win in game 2.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The next highest was 112.6.
Really?
It just never really got that good. And like that's kind of and then I'm pulling up last year, their highest was 116.3 in their win. Their next highest was 104.4 2 years ago in that 5-game series. So like there are real questions to answer. I need to see
100%.
4 or 5 games in a row with you at 116, 117, 118. Like I'd almost rather see that than one outlier game at like 140 and then a bunch in the 110s, you know?
Yeah.
Like they've got to score. And until I see it in the playoffs, I do think that anxiety is just as a fan isn't gonna go away. Even though I've got a lot of good data and evidence to support that it should be better. But yeah, I'm gonna be angsty about it, dude. I just don't see a way around it for me.
That's fair. Do you want to, before we get out of here, do you want to give some predictions for the East series that we do know? Bucks and Pacers and Pistons Knicks?
Sure. I think that's a perfect series for the Knicks. Like I think like the Pistons kind of have to play a very similar way to the Knicks in the sense that like they have one lead creator and then and then a bunch of like tertiary creators at best. And the Knicks have one of the best bulldogs to throw at a lead creator in the NBA, in OG. And I don't think the Pistons have the size to punish the Knicks for putting their power forward on their point guard. Like Duren is one of my pet cats. I love watching Jalen Duren play, but like he's not just gonna mash guys in the post, And like I don't know. I think they're gonna win that series. I think they're gonna win it relatively handily in like 5 games. And then for the Pacers Bucks, I don't know, man. I feel like the Bucks have won 8 games in a row.
I was vaguely aware of that.
I was not aware of that till I just looked at the standings
our guy Ty Windish, who's always doing good work.
I don't know. I think the Pacers are going to be wildly heavily favored in that series. And I just think the Giannis thing matters a lot.
It's going to take it at least 6 or 7.
He's going to average 40 for the series.
Yeah, I think ultimately I'm going to pick the Pacers in 6. But I can absolutely see Giannis winning that series. I don't think
pick Bucks in 7. Screw it.
I like that. Okay. All right. I'll go Pacers in 6. You go Bucks in 7. And I'm going to go the opposite way of you on Pistons Knicks. I'm picking Detroit in 6. JB Bickerstaff's revenge series. The Knicks were 1-3 against Detroit throughout the season. They really had a lot of trouble with that. I'm not a believer in Karl Anthony Towns in the playoffs. I think Cade Cunningham did a really, really good job defending Jalen Brunson all season. And they got shooting, they got physicality, they have depth. JB's been running a deep rotation there. I think Detroit's going to shock the world and beat a emotionally hurt Knicks team because they seem to be going through a lot right now.
Yeah, just pulled it up on FanDuel just to check. The Pistons are plus 340, Knicks minus 430. So pretty heavy dogs. And Pacers are minus 230 and the Bucks are plus 190. So I don't know if I would
gambled, I might jump on that Detroit one, but I don't.
I just don't know if I would weigh those that far apart. I think both of those are closer in terms of the overall matchup than maybe the numbers show. But I would pick Knicks in 5.
All right. Well, I'm going Detroit in 6. So it'll be fun to track who's right on that one. JB getting revenge against the Knicks would be a lot of fun, and then going up against Boston. I want a world where Boston has to go through Orlando and Detroit just from a physical standpoint before they make the Eastern Conference Finals. So maybe I'm letting my hopes and dreams get the best of me.
Real quick out west, that's interesting. Couldn't have broken better bracket wise for the Lakers.
I know.
Than getting the T-Wolves, a weird, messy T-Wolves season. And with, one of the great Gobert torturers of Gobert's career and Luka, one of the guys who makes his life horrible and seems to really relish it. So there's that. And then, they're on the side of the bracket with the Rockets, who no one really believes in, if we're being really honest, and as a postseason team. And then it's, the play-in morass of Golden State. If it's not the Rockets, you're going to play Golden State, Memphis, Sacramento, or Dallas, and I think the Lakers would be heavily favored in all those except against the Warriors.
Yeah,
so
I was hoping for the Warriors to win this game today. I wanted them to play the Lakers in the first round, but if Jimmy's a little banged up, maybe a series against the Rockets to get a little healthier would do some good, because I'm firmly rooting against the Lakers this postseason.
I'm firmly rooting for them. So
I know you.
Because I want a LeBron Cavs finals so bad. I think the ratings would be bananas. I think the excitement would be bananas. There would be so many interesting storylines.
I want that too, because I don't think they're that good.
Well,
I'm not a believer in this.
Also, and here's where I get selfish. I think they're the team with the best chance of beating the Thunder in the West. And if the Cavs are getting to the finals, I would rather play the Lakers than the Thunder.
Yeah. In any of the other ones, like Denver, I'm kind of ruling out after firing Michael Malone. I just, I don't think that's a move you make and then make the NBA Finals. Any of, the Lakers or Warriors would be very fun storylines. If you get Chapter 5 against the Warriors, that would be absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think the Warriors are good enough. So that's
I don't think they are either. No.
So it's like, I think in the West, 3 teams can make the finals. And I think it's OKC, Lakers, and Nuggets.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
I'd give Golden State a better chance than the Nuggets at this point.
Nuggets have the best player in the world. So
that does tend to matter.
I am so biased toward Nikola Jokic, who is my favorite player to watch in the league. So
he's a genius. He's a lot of fun. I can't fault you there, but no, I'm excited, man. The playoffs are finally here. I feel like we've learned a lot about this group over 82 games, and now we're going to learn some lessons that you can only learn in the playoffs. And I hope what we learn is overwhelmingly positive, because that would just be building off what turned out to be one of my favorite regular seasons of all time.
Oh yeah, brother, we're here. We did it, Joe.
We are finally here. We'll be podcasting Wednesday after the second East play-in game, just so that we know who is actually competing, or at least have an idea of who the 2 teams may be. Big thanks to everyone tuning in on YouTube. We really do appreciate you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.